Hello and welcome to WorldatWork TV. I'm Tanya Adamski. Today I'll be speaking with Leonard Sanicola, practice leader for WorldatWork. We'll be discussing the recently released Paid Time Off Programs and Practices Survey for 2016. Thanks for joining me today, Lenny.
Thanks, Tanya.
Let's jump in and talk about when we started this research back in 2002. At that time, we were seeing a lot of organizations transfer away from traditional PTO programs and into the PTO banks. But since 2010, that number has really leveled off. Are you surprised by that?
Not really, Tanya. I think, people that have wanted, companies that have wanted to do it have made that decision. It's not for everybody. I think those that have been successful with more of the traditional siloed programs have no reason. You have to have a reason to switch, whether that be employee relations issue, administrative issues, cost issues, whatever the case might be, there's variables to consider. And I think those that have felt the need to switch have done so, and those who haven't, are staying with what works for them. I mean, culture is a big thing as well, that you always have to remember organizational culture has to be taken into consideration. Now, that being said, with the influx of millennials and Gen Z right behind them who are looking for more flexibility, more creativity in their paid time off, we could see, although it's been flat, maybe there'll be an uptick in the next iteration that we do.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the future of work, because we hear a lot in the media about organizations switching to unlimited PTO. But our survey results show only about 1% of organizations are actually offering that. Do you think we'll see more in the future?
Good question. I'm surprised that I haven't seen a little slight uptick. I'm not surprised that it's low.
It stayed level.
But it's stayed level, 1% since we started asking that question. It's a niche benefit. So, you hear one company or two companies doing it and right away you think, oh, it's going to become mainstream, and not necessarily so. Unlimited paid time off really fits only certain cultures. We've seen it mostly in small organizations, white-collar, professional-level jobs. We really haven't seen it, except for a few exceptions, in large organizations, which is the crux of our audience. So most of our respondents come from large organizations. So not surprised that it's a low number, but I thought I might see a little uptick from the 1%.
You mentioned that PTO banks aren't for every organization, and we see that dependent on industry and org size, you might be more likely to choose a PTO bank. For instance, the healthcare industry is very prominent in choosing PTO banks, and organizations that are between 10,000 employees and just under 20,000 employees, very large organizations, are also more likely to choose a PTO bank. Can you help us understand that?
Well, PTO banks really started in the healthcare sector. So if you go back to the 1970s and you had healthcare workers that were doing 12-hour shifts or 10-hour days, that's really where the flexibility and the need for flexibility started. So the large percentage of respondents from those organizations, that healthcare sector, that would be the expected large amount. As far as the larger organizations in terms of size that you mentioned, most organizations that have switched to PTO banks are those that are looking for more administrative simplicity, not wanting to track absences among the different siloed benefits. So no surprise that we would see that in the larger organizations that are looking for more administrative and operational efficiencies and more flexibility.
Something new that we added this year to the PTO survey was a section on parental leave. We were looking to better understand job-protected leave and what organizations are offering that go beyond the legal requirements. And we also wanted to understand, we wanted to gather information about separate paid parental leave programs for new parents.
Job protective leave simply means that we're going to hold a job for the individual until they return from a qualifying absence. Now, the reason that we're offering job-protected leave could be due to federal or state or city mandates. It could be simply due to the fact that we choose to do that. But whether it's paid or not really is a separate issue. Job protection by itself just simply means is that while you're out on that qualifying leave, we're going to hold your job. Now, there are cases where that job, while you're out, it might be paid, whether that's due to disability payments, vacation time, or the myriad.
What kind of programs are offered that might help pay the employee while they're out on just a job-protected leave?
It could be disability, if that's appropriate, disability payments, could be vacation, PTO accrual time. Certainly any legal mandates, you might be required, but as far as pay, it could be a variety of things. Now, in our survey, when we did specifically ask about job-protected leave, not necessarily whether it was paid or how it was paid, 18% of respondents reported that they go above and beyond whatever might be required of them from a legal perspective. So 18% of respondents said they offered more job protective leave than they would be required to do so, basically because they chose to, whether that was they wanted to offer additional flexibility or additional protections.
And what did we learn about paid parental leave?
Tanya, more research is definitely needed to determine the prevalence of paid leave for new parents. But for those respondents that indicated that they had a distinct bucket of what they called leave, paid leave for new parents, 54% offered less than 6 weeks, 16% offered 6 weeks, and 16% offered 12 weeks. But WorldatWork will be doing more research to determine the prevalence of paid leave, paid parental leave.
What can you tell us about new paid time off laws and newer generations that are coming into the workforce?
Great question, Tanya. There's been lots of hype in the media about new parental leave laws, both maternity and paternity. What we're seeing is it being talked about at the federal level, but no action generated thus far. Most of the activity has been at the state and city level. So organizations that operate in multiple jurisdictions are being hit with a patchwork of different state and city laws that they have to comply with. In addition to that, we are hearing about companies, private sector companies, mostly in Silicon Valley, some financial services organizations that are being generous in terms of expanding their parental leave benefits or adding them for the first time. I suspect that this will continue and other companies will come forward and expand their programs or implement their programs. Why? Well, again, we have a lot of newer generations coming into the workforce. Many of them are at the childbearing ages. Stereotypes have changed. It's no longer about dads working outside the home and not being involved in their children's lives. So we see more millennial dads that want to be involved in their families, want to be involved with their children, and so these individuals are asking for more flexibility around parental leave. So I would suspect that we will, as we continue to do further research on this, we will see more companies add this to their portfolio of offerings. The other question is how much of that will be paid. So we've seen it all across the board, even from the state and city level. It's a myriad of options, but I imagine we'll continue to see that being explored as well.
So it sounds like as we head into the future of work, the old paradigm and the old models that we are using are no longer working.
Yes, I would like to see, paid time off is usually based on tenure. We don't see people staying with companies for extensive lengths of time anymore. It'd be interesting to sort of redesign that to say, you get more paid time off up front and the companies becoming a little bit more creative in how they design and deliver it and not based on the old model. But I would say today, as we are talking here one-on-one, the old model is still out there. It's still basically you get more paid time off the longer you are with an organization, with few exceptions. And hopefully that paradigm will shift, and that will be based upon need as competition for talent heats up and the future of work is changing.
That's great information. Thanks so much, Lenny.
Thanks, Tanya.
For more information about this, please visit worldatwork.org.